everybody. I'm your host, Holy Joe Rock and Roll, and welcome to another Expat Stories from Around the World. Now, today I'm going to tell you two stories about my friend Mike and his father. So it's kind of wrapping two stories into one because it's related to the same person. But this guy, I'm calling him Mike. That's sort of a generic name for all of my characters here. He happens to be Jewish, and he's a British citizen who grew up in South Africa. And the story starts out with his father, and this is really a fascinating story about, I guess during the times of apartheid, there was sanctions against South Africa, and you could not get money out of the country. And this is not meant to be a stereotype about money and Jews, but whatever. It's kind of interesting. So it turns out that Mike's dad was somehow involved in some kind of money, smuggling money out of the country. Okay, I guess that's the only way to put it. He was involved somehow in smuggling money out of the country. And I guess the authorities were onto him and were going to arrest him. And he escaped out of South Africa, somehow got across the border with either a fake passport or, I guess the borders are pretty porous there, and eventually took a plane to the UK. And the interesting part of the story was that how they found out that their dad was safe was they got a message from the rabbi. The local rabbi was in contact with a UK rabbi, and they have some kind of underground network or private Jewish network where they could communicate with each other. And this is years ago, right? This is 80s, I guess mid 80s. So there was no internet. I mean, there was CompuServe, but I don't even know if they had dial-up access in South Africa, but whatever. So the funny part is just how they communicated this message back that the father had made it safe to the UK, and it was through this, I guess they call it the Jewish grapevine or something like that, the rabbi network, something like that. So that was pretty interesting. Now fast forward to Mike in his own life. You may remember this, kind of, I don't know, it turns out that there was this stamp craze in the late 80s and early 90s. I don't know if you remember that. There was just this sort of gray market where people were buying and selling stamps, and in large quantities, and the price kept going up and up and up on these sort of stamps, and some of them weren't even really worthy of collectible. They weren't really collectible stamps. They were, I don't know if there was a craze. It was like a bubble. It turns out that it was actually fueled by money laundering by drug cartels. That's how they were laundering the money, was buying stamps and then selling the stamps, and that's how they turned black money into white. So without necessarily knowing what was going on, my friend Mike himself actually started getting involved in that business in terms of buying and selling stamps. Excuse me. And one thing that was really interesting about this dude is that he actually flew to several Eastern European countries. It had to be, it was right after the wall fell down, so it was early 90s. And he made contact with the central, with the central authorities, him and a partner. And I think he was in Belarus, or probably Belarus, I think he was. And he made a deal where he bought like 50 boxes of this supposedly rare, valuable Belarus stamps. He bought 50 boxes of these things, and he bought them directly from the Ministry of, the Postal Service or whatever, the Ministry of Finance. And he went in with his partner, and they bought 50 boxes of this stuff, put it on the airplane, did shots when they finished the deal, and flew back and made a killing off of these stamps, right? Because they were just really clever enough to go where no one would go, no one thought about going, getting these stamps and then selling them to, the bigger idiot or another idiot. So that was just two stories that he told me that were just fascinating. and really very interesting in terms of, the entrepreneurship of both his father and the son. So I hope this was an interesting story. I know it's a little bit condensed, a little bit short, but just really cool story. And the guy is a really cool guy. So this is Holy Joe Rock and Roll. This has been expat stories from around the world. I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, make it happen for the captain, because you're the captain.